So I'm here right now with Danielle Suchley, my business partner of 15 years. And you know what, with all of the problems that exist with what's going on with coronavirus and, you know, the talk of a recession coming and people losing their jobs and companies not creating revenue, particularly in, aviation, tourism and hospitality, I think it's important that we really understand, if we're in the SME space, we run a business or a business unit even with its own P&L, the kind of decisions we need to make, the steps we need to make so that we don't get the next few months wrong, because potentially it could be devastating for a lot of businesses and it'll be the smart ones that come through the other side. So Danny, when we think about our company, you started off you're kind of like I'm the kind of risk taker. You're the cautious person, and I think that's why there's a great balance there. Yeah. When we think about that though, I probably at the beginning of this was like, it's no big deal, you know. This virus is going to come and go. You know, I didn't even know where Wuhan was. You know, for me it wasn't a great thing. But then as it manifested itself into Iran, then it was like, hold on a minute, this is coming somewhere out. Yeah. So when you saw it coming and you started to notice it, were you picking up vibes from just taking the news and seeing what was going on there? Or did you see it from, did revenue start to drop initially? Where was it for you?
I think with having Finsbury Associates, it was kind of an indicator from the markets, so the global markets, seeing losses within the stock markets, seeing currency fluctuations. We started to see a load of volatility, which was kind of the first sign for us that, okay, this is probably going to have a bigger impact than maybe we first anticipated.
The stock market movements were incredible, weren't they?
Unbelievable, yeah.
I don't think I can't remember a time apart from, you know, I'm much older than you, and I know you teased me about that, but Black Monday in October 1987, we saw a massive drop in that one single day. I don't remember a time where it's had me on such a heightened state of alert of consuming the content around what's going on with the markets.
No, 100%. And it appears that it was Black Monday again. It's my wedding anniversary, 9th of March. So yeah, forever known now. 9th of March was our single biggest loss this time.
Have the markets factored this in? Have they now built into it? You know, because we've seen massive drops on the stock exchanges, oil prices come down. Have the markets really factored this in now, or do you think there's more to come?
I don't think anyone can say at this stage. Clearly, when you compare it to a normalised market, there's already a massive amount of opportunity in the market because there's already been a big loss, and so things are already cheap. Will they get cheaper still? I think no one knows the answer to that question, and I think a lot of the things that people are looking for at the moment are those kind of green shoots of sentiment that are starting to emerge now from China in terms of things starting to normalise. And I think as we start to see more of that, consumers will get more confidence back, and I'd expect to see it shoot up again in the same way that it declined. So you'd expect.
So you think it's as fast as it went down, it's likely to react in the same way eventually.
Yeah. When that happens, though, that's the telling part.
Okay, so let's imagine that the people that are listening to this, that they run businesses in the SME space, and there's concerns now. And to me, when you run a business, it's rule number one: keep the business going.
Yes, survive it. Yeah.
And rule number two is for me is always cash flow. Yeah. You know, because if you can cash flow the business, you can continue. It doesn't necessarily have to be profit, but cash flow means you can keep going. Mm-hmm. What kind of advice would you give to people that own SME businesses right now? What steps should they take?
So I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, we divided our leadership team into two sections. One section who were really, really focused on the quick wins in terms of income. So keeping business, basically moving through the business and being as creative as we could possibly be. So for some of our business lines, that meant creating a digital version of what was a face-to-face course or face-to-face meetings. So there was one team that were purely focused around revenue. The second team are purely focused around cash flow. And so for them, they're looking at anything that could mean that the cash flow is delayed coming into the business, but also looking at wherever we can cut costs, so cutting as much fat away from the business as possible. And I think for us, having those teams as two separate teams has been quite useful, because it's really hard if you have this team here as my commercial team focused on being creative, fighting it, finding new ways to find that revenue still, and then at the same time you're asking them to go through the suppliers and cut costs and trim the fat as well. I do think it's two very different skill sets. So separating it for me has been something that's been valuable. I follow a guy, Keith Cunningham, So he does a lot of the financial guru aspects of the Tony Robbins courses. His analogy is that you've just gone into an emergency room now. So you are now in ER, and the things he talks about, if you had a patient rushed into ER, you'd be monitoring the vital stats, so making sure that the patient wasn't losing blood and that you were getting oxygen into that patient. You wouldn't be monitoring the BMI or anything, the cholesterol level, anything other than those vital statistics. And I think that's a great analogy at the moment for businesses. That's very much the approach we're taking.
So keep revenue coming through the door in any way you can,
Yep.
okay, and manage your costs, manage your outgoings as well as you can. Now, let's say I've got a company of employees, I've got 10, 15 employees, they've been loyal to me for years and years and years. We've got this kind of like family type feel, and I don't want to get rid of anyone.
No.
Because they've been so loyal, but I know that the amount of cash that I've got in the bank's only going to be able to last the next maybe 2-3 months maximum. Will I be out the other side in 3 months, and will I be in a position where I don't have to worry about that typically?
I think everyone should be taking the view of that it's probably going to be, so we're kind of looking at 3 to 6 months of disruption at the moment.
Okay.
So again, depending on how focused on your numbers and some of these things you were pre-coronavirus, I think, again, great health analogy. So if people were smoking, not exercising, they had underlying health issues before coronavirus hit, I think they're going to have a harder time, and they're going to have to take more drastic measures now than people who were super fit and healthy at the time when coronavirus came around. It's the same with your financials. So if you had really, really healthy cash flow levels, if you had good margins, okay, if you'd planned and done a lot of work prior to this happening, and I feel as a group we were in quite a privileged position that we were sat on a decent amount of cash in terms of our cash ratio. I think for those people, this isn't going to be so painful so quickly as maybe it will be for people who they've got 1 or 2 months cash flow sat liquid at the moment. For those people, they need to act now, and despite loyalty, despite personal feelings, number one objective is to get the business to survive and hopefully to be able to re-employ people at the end of it. Again, the analogy that Keith uses is that if you have to amputate a leg, so you cut away someone, it's something that's completely vital and core, that's going to be something that you're going to have a limp for the rest of your life. If though you lose some muscle, okay, you lose some fat, you have to put a cast on it, break a bone, okay, that's something that's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks after that injury, you're going to be able to come back from it. And it really is about that. It's about keeping the vitals going at whatever extent measures need to be taken, I think, at this stage.
Now we're hearing from various governments around the world that they're going to support businesses. Here in the United Arab Emirates, I don't know how that's going to play out. Initially, the company registration fees might be something that are put to one side for now, deferred, or if not, suspended altogether. Companies have been able to negotiate their rent, so that they can get better deals there. I was listening to one of the bosses of Do on the radio this morning, and he wasn't sure what they were going to do in particular, which, when you hear what's coming out from the rest of the world, you're hearing that salaries are going to be covered up to 80% and stuff like this, and you're not hearing that so much here. To me, that means there's more responsibility on an SME business owner to make really tough decisions now, but it doesn't make them any friends, does it?
It doesn't, and the fact that your employees at the moment, they're not going to have the support of a social state is also really something that's a consideration. I think still, nevertheless, most people, if we're here in the UAE, people need to make financial provision, have savings, have emergency funds. We don't pay tax, we don't pay national insurance contributions and things that we do back home. And so making sure that this is where it's so important to have that rainy day fund and have money put out to one side, both from a company and individuals.
I was just going to say exactly that. If this does anything, it should teach us that we need to save money.
Yeah, save money, have good insurance. Yeah, there's a lot of financial planning requests we're getting right now in that base level of financial planning from a kind of...
So I'm an employer and I've got to get rid of some staff so that I can keep the business going. So I'm not going to be everyone's best friend. Let's flip it around. I'm an employee. All right, I'm in a salaried job right now. What kind of things do I need to be doing as an employee of a company to give myself a fighting chance of not being maybe selected as someone that needs to be made redundant?
Well, that's it. As an employer, you need to be looking at your payroll and looking at who are the people that the business can't function without. And as an employee, you need to be making yourself one of those people that the business can't function without. And for some people, that'll be changing skill sets and learning new skill sets and turning your hand to different things and being flexible and being, using this opportunity rather than kind of, okay, I've got quite a bit of downtime, learning new skills and making sure that you're the best version of yourself when it comes to being an employee that people need to retain right now.
Being flexible as an employee means maybe it's better to take an offer from an employer to reduce your salary for a period of time, maybe 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever that may be. In this case, maybe 3 to 6 months, and keep your job on a lower salary, okay, so that you can stay within the business rather than the alternative, which may be full redundancy.
Yeah, so I think that employees certainly need to understand and appreciate the gravity of the situation. I think it is also, though, the duty of the employer to make sure that they're communicating to their employees, to their suppliers, to anyone in their business chain at the moment, what problems they have now and what problems may arise. I know at the moment, our business, we seem to be maintaining that revenue flow quite consistently. There's loads of things that are outside of our control that may kind of hit that pipeline further down the road, and we're just being really mindful in terms of communicating those things at the moment to our employees so that it doesn't come as a nasty surprise, so that they are kept in the loop.
There's lots of people that are companies out there that are waiting for payments or receiving payments from companies that they do business with, and they're chasing that money all of the time to get that money in as well as best they can. But there's that chain that goes with it, because that company is probably chasing money from another company and so on and so forth. And so when you see there's lots of money owed, but not necessarily going to be lots of money paid anytime soon as well.
Okay, yeah, which is exactly why people need to focus on their accounts receivable, so their income statement really, and the business that they're writing, they're producing, the numbers that are, the orders that they're taking, versus their cash flow statement, because I think that'll be the biggest area of discrepancy right now for most small businesses. Still, people will still need services, they will still need products, they will still need order of their supplies, but can they necessarily pay for them at this time? There just seems to be a backlog at the moment. And that's something that, as a business owner, you need to have a beady eye on that over the next few weeks, months. And
lastly, it's kind of like those 3 boxes, isn't it? You've got the kind of like the shock, you've got the fear, and then you've got the fight mentality when you understand where any individual or any business is. I think that successful entrepreneurs tend to get to fight much quicker. Than others, and start working crisis. They start to you see their mettle, don't you, in times like that?
Yeah, you do, 100%. And I think that fight, look, we've seen it across all of our teams. People have been incredibly creative, resilient. Energy's been like 10 times that you would usually expect. It's been awesome to be part of that team at the moment. I think with that fight, though, it's just making sure that there's a lot of clarity around picking your battles. And I think going at it blind and just kind of taking every battle right now, again, it's not sustainable. They need to be a little bit more strategic, probably, rather than tactical at this time.
Really good stuff. Look, the reason for sharing this type of content with you is that we, as an SME business ourselves, we feel some of the pain that you're going through. But if you don't take the right steps, then you're going to be caught out in a very difficult place. As an employer, as an employee, these are really, really challenging times. So as Danny said, really important. Great communication really is key here. Managing your cash flow is really important. And making sure that you're set up, prepared and organised for what potentially is coming. I know a lot of people are still wrapped up in the fact that there are people sick, and we can't take away from how important that is. But my belief is, and I think a lot of business owners' belief is what's going to happen once people start to recover. We've seen people recover in China. We'll see people start to recover in other countries as well. Once that trend starts, then we go into the next phase, and being prepared for that next phase is absolutely vitally important.